Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So we are going to pick up right where we left off in the last video on the secret doctrine. If you haven't seen the last video, I recommend that you go back and watch that one first. I cover a little bit of introductory knowledge about her life, where the secret doctrine came from, and what the Book of Zion is that we are reading from today. And I'm going to make a playlist for the secret doctrine. So that way it'll be a little bit easier to find the videos. So let's get right into it. From where I left off last time, we were talking about the robes of the eternal parent stand for the noumenon. And I did look up that definition. A noumenon is different from phenomenon because if your five senses are picking it up, that's phenomenon. And noumenon is the thing in and of itself that's behind more of the causal factor of these physical manifestations or things that we perceive through the five senses. At least that's how I have come to understand what they mean, or what she means by the word noumenon. Thus the robes stand for the noumenon of undifferentiated cosmic matter. It is not matter as we know it, but the spiritual essence of matter, so that which is behind the matter itself, and is co-eternal and even one with space in its abstract sense. So this spiritual essence that is behind matter itself is co-eternal and one with space in its abstract sense. Root nature is also the source of the subtle, invisible properties in visible nature. So there's once again, a causal factor. Root nature is the source of the subtle and visible properties in visible nature, or visible matter. So you're kind of almost between the etheric and the astral, I would say somewhere in between there at that point. It is the soul, so to say, of the one infinite spirit. And now here's the first of many terms to come that come more from Eastern teachings, and as a Kabbalist or a Kabbalist and a Mason, and more of the Western ceremonial tradition. I'm not familiar with a lot of these terms. So it may be beneficial to look up the definitions. A lot of the times at the bottom of the page, she will put a footnote for what the word means if it's really important. So I'm not going to get into the definition of some of these words now, but she'll explain them as we go along. So the soul, or this one infinite spirit that we're talking about, the Hindus called it Mula, and I'm probably butchering this completely, Mula Prakriti, and say that it is the primordial substance, which is the basis of upati, or vehicle of every phenomenon. So it's this primordial substance, the basis or the vehicle for every phenomenon, whether physical, psychic, or mental. It is the source from which Akasha radiates. And there we just talked about that term in the last video, how the Book of Zion is very similar to the Akashic record. The Book of Akasha, which is a record of all things that have, happened before, that are happening now, and that are to come. Kind of in this, you can access this book by channeling it more in the astral realm. Don't ask me details about that because I don't really have information about that, but I just have heard some of the lore surrounding the Akashic records. By the seven eternities, aeons or periods are meant. And let's go back and read the actual stanza. So stanza 1, verse 1 that we were reading before. The eternal parent or space wrapped in her ever invisible robes had slumbered once again for 7 eternities. And we were I was talking about the oxymoron of that, because 7 eternities, because eternity in and of itself is supposed to mean forever. So by the 7 eternities, aeons or periods are meant. So these aeons, cycles, periods, whatever you want to call them. The word eternity, as understood in Christian theology, has no meaning to the Asiatic ear, the Asian ear, except in its application to the one existence. Nor is the term sempiternity or sempiternity, the eternal only in futurity, anything better than a misnomer. Here's the footnote it has to say on that. It is stated in Book 2 of Vishnu Purana, I'm probably butchering that, term as well. By immortality is meant existence to the end of the kalpa. And Wilson, the translator, remarks in a footnote, this, according to the Vedas, is all that is to be understood of the immortality or eternity of the gods. They perish at the end of universal dissolution, or pralaya. So at the end of one of these cycles, what she's saying is that even the gods themselves, and take note, God's lowercase g, it's not the ultimate source. It's just a deity that is above, has more consciousness than we as humans currently have. And eventually they all get absorbed into source. It all rolls into one. And esoteric philosophy says they perish not, but are reabsorbed. So, yeah, basically what I was just saying, it all rolls back into one. So eternity is understood by Christian theology. It doesn't mean anything to, the more ancient schools of wisdom over in Asia, except in its application to one existence. So it's all one thing happening at once, essentially. And I don't remember what the word sempiternity means. It's like eternity, but S-E-M-P-I-T. Eternity instead of eternity. So I'll have to look up the definition for that as well. I've heard that word before in my research. Such words do not and cannot exist in philosophical metaphysics, and were unknown till the advent of ecclesiastical Christianity. So nobody really used the word eternity as in this thing that can be encased. It was always understood before as this ever-flowing thing. It's always, going on. The 7 eternities mean the 7 periods, or a period answering in its duration to the 7 periods of a manvantara, extending throughout the Mahakalpa. Nope, and that's a different term than the M word that I said earlier, or great age, 100 years of Brahma. So one of these, the 7 eternities, it seems like, or 7 periods, it's a period answering in duration to the 7 periods of a manvantara, or a great age, 100 years of Brahma, which is a total of 311 trillion, 40 billion years. That's quite a long time. Each year of Brahma being composed of 360 days, and of the same number of nights of Brahma, reckoning by the Chandrayana, or lunar year, and a day of Brahma consisting of... A day of Brahma consists of 4,320,000,000 mortal years. So it's just hard for our minds to even conceive of these grand cycles, because what we're currently perceiving and experiencing is such a small, tiny fractal within the whole scheme of things. But at the same time, our role is very important. There's only one of us. We're here for a very unique reason and purpose. These eternities belong to the most secret calculations, in which, in order to arrive at the true total, every figure must be a 7th to the power of, or 7x, the little x that's in the right-hand corner of the 7. X varying according to the nature of the cycle in the subjective or the real world, so the spiritual realms and the physical world. And every figure relating to or representing the different cycles from the greatest to the smallest in the objective or unreal world must necessarily be multiples of 7. This is like a divine mystery, that all these cycles, all these things that are going on in nature on the macrocosmic and the microcosmic scale are like multiples of 7, where they mathematically align with the number 7. Multiples of 7, as it says. Frappe is so good still. The key to this cannot be given, Blavatsky says, for herein lies the mystery of esoteric calculations. So it's really a pretty divine secret. And for the purposes of ordinary calculation, it has no sense. So probably in practicality, or someone who's just a total materialist, it probably has no real maybe significance. You would have to you'd have to put it into a spiritual perspective to see the grander scheme of what the number 7, the real mystery of the number 7. The number 7, says the Kabbalah, is the great number of the divine mysteries. Number 10 is that of all human knowledge. I remember 10 being the perfect number. I had read that from some Pythagoras stuff. And therefore, the number 7,000 is also symbolical. Number 10. Number 7, says the Kabbalah, is the great number of the divine mysteries. Number 10 is that of all human knowledge, the Pythagorean decad. 1,000 is the number 10 to the third power, and therefore the number 7,000 is also symbolical. In the Secret Doctrine, the figure in number 4 is the male symbol only on the highest plane of abstraction. On the plane of matter, the 3 is the masculine and the 4 is feminine. So that's interesting. So in the higher realms, 4 is the masculine number. But then on the plane of matter, the 3 becomes the symbolic number for male, and then 4 for the feminine. The upright and the horizontal in the 4th stage of symbolism, when the symbols become the glyphs of the generative powers on the physical plane. So this is some pretty complex stuff right here that is being said. The figure and number 4 is the male symbol only on the highest plane of abstraction. On the plane of matter, 3 is the masculine and 4 the feminine. Those combined equal 7. So it's the upright and the horizontal in the 4th stage of symbolism. I'm not sure exactly what she means by that. When the symbols become the glyphs of the generative powers on the physical plane. So there must be some glyph or picture or something that is symbolical of the masculine, perhaps, the generative power on the physical plane. The reason why I think 4 would be more of a feminine number, perhaps, in the physical is because 4 is the square. We think about 4 as relating to the material realm. And the feminine is the energy that bursts life. You know, it's the magnetic force, the absorbing force. It's the foundation for all things to come in the material realm. So perhaps that's there's some application there, you know, that could be used for the number 4 being feminine. As for the number 3 being masculine, I'm not too sure about that. I'm assuming what they're talking about here is maybe the triangle in the cube, or the triangle in the square, or the pyramid in the cube. Because the upright triangle, you know, 3 angles represented by the number 3, that could be what they mean. And the triangle, the upright triangle, is the element of fire. So that's a possibility. So we are still on stanza 1, and there are a bunch of lines in the stanza, and we've just now gotten through line 1, which was the eternal parent space wrapped in her ever-invisible robes had slumbered once again for 7 eternities. So as you can see, there's a lot of explanation that goes into each little passage from these stanzas. I think I'm going to go ahead and go over the second passage in the stanza, the second line, or second verse, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I love doing this. This is, I'm not even like taking notes for this or anything, just reading along and being able to, you know, do commentary on these things like this and the Bible and Dante. This is all, you know, super fun for me, so I hope you're all enjoying it. If you like my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Ring the little bell if you want to be notified of new videos. And let me know what you guys like. I know I've said that before, so I usually try to stick to ceremonial magic stuff, but I also get into more philosophic stuff like this, which is still very esoteric, very occult. It's going to help us in our magic and stuff to understand how the different planes of existence work. I do the Dante series, all that stuff. I did want to do a final video on the Zelda Ocarina of Time video game. I know I had a new subscriber comment on one of my Zelda videos. Shout out to you. I'm super glad you appreciate that. I don't think there's really too much esoteric lore to cover in the Ocarina of Time, though. I tried to see if there was enough to get through the rest of that game, but I don't think there's really anything too significant in the rest of the game that's very occult. I mean, it's a cool story and everything, but we pretty much covered everything. I could get into other Zelda games, I could do another Elder Scrolls video at some point too. Maybe cover the lore of another video game at some point. I've played quite a bit over the years. So, okay, let's get back into it. I'm always getting sidetracked. So verse 2, or line 2 of the first stanza. Time was not, for it lay asleep in the infinite bosom of duration. Time is only an illusion, and of course we hear this all the time, produced by the succession of our states of consciousness as we travel through eternal duration. So it's just a succession of states of consciousness. If you think about it, I think it was maybe Einstein or one of the other scientists who thought about everything, everything's like, all of reality is split up into these little like movie frames. It's all these little clips being played, and it's all just really one thing being done at one point, but there's all these little snippets. So time is more of this frame of reference type thing. Damien Eccles has a really good quote about that. I don't think I can look that up. I do have it saved on my phone somewhere, but I don't think I can look that up while I am filming this video. But Damien Eccles does a really good video about staying in the present. There's a book he talks about in that, and I can't remember what the name of the book is, but I highly recommend it, just because, we can't really move forward or go in the direction that we want if we're still getting so upset about things that happened, 5-10 years ago, if we're still holding grudges against people and stuff like that. That's what that video is all about. And just staying on your path and not getting distracted by, what everybody else is worried about. So let's get into it. Time is only an illusion produced by the succession of our states of consciousness as we travel through this eternal duration, and it does not exist where no consciousness exists, in which the illusion can be produced, but lies asleep. So time doesn't exist where no consciousness exists, in which the illusion can be produced, but lies asleep. So time itself lies asleep. If there's nothing to perceive anything yet, other than this original source, this original parent that we talked about in the first verse, then there's no time to be had, essentially. The present is only a mathematical line which divides that part of the eternal duration which we call the future from that part which we call the past. Once again, it's just a reference point. It's no more real than, the future or the past. They're both not truly real. Nothing on earth has real duration, for nothing remains without change, or the same for the billionth part of a second. Think about that. Can we even think about what a billionth part of a second is? We can't even perceive that, but yet nothing is staying the same. It is eternally vibrating, if we want to get into Hermetic principles and stuff, into a new form. And the sensation we have of the actuality of the division of time known as the present comes from the blurring of the momentary glimpse or succession of glimpses of things that our senses give us, as those things pass from the region of ideals, which we call the future, to the region of memories that we name the past. So it's all stimuli apparent, supposedly it's all just us perceiving it. But it's saying that the present itself comes from this glimpse, this momentary glimpse or succession of glimpses. So all these little frameworks of things that give our senses, things that our senses give us, as those things pass from the region of ideals, which we call the future, to the region of memories that we name the past. I think a really good way to symbolically understand how this works is, I'm losing my train of thought. So it's, as you move through time, the actual reality of what lays behind it is always kind of covered up by all of these things that are bombarding us all the time. If the present is only a blur of all these different things, like momentary glimpses from the past or the future, it's all kind of merged into one. Just imagine it as all this invisible chaos, going around you. But what's the true actuality behind that, behind all this, craziness, all this energy being merged all the time? And that's really what we try to get to the essence of in the occult. in magic, where we want to know what is the driving force behind all of this, what is real, and what is just an illusion, what is just a veil placed over us, and what is actuality. You know, it's the whole, you know, Morpheus and Neo thing in The Matrix. I'm sure all of you know that movie by now, especially if you're watching this channel. So what's next? Just one last thing on that last passage. The blurring of the momentary glimpse or succession of glimpses of things that our senses give us, as those things pass from the region of our ideals, which we call the future, to the region of memories that we name the past. So it's almost like moving in a backwards fashion, it seems like. That's kind of interesting. In the same way we experience a sensation of duration in the case of the instantaneous electric spark, by reason of the blurred and continuing impression on the retina. Interesting. The real personal thing does not consist solely of what is seen at any particular moment. So this is what we were just talking about, kind of all that chaos and the energy that's rolling around, you know, around us at all times, but is composed of the sum of all its various and changing conditions from its appearance in material form to its disappearance from earth. So it's basically these energies processing themselves on the material plane and manifesting in all these various fashions. It is these sum totals that exist from eternity in the future and pass by degrees through matter to exist for eternity in the past. That's weird. So it's almost like the sands of an hourglass, like rolling through. There was also another kind of visualization that just came to my mind a minute ago. And I can't remember what it was. I just kept on reading. But anyway, I'll keep on moving. No one would say that a bar of metal dropped into the sea came into existence as it left the air, and ceased to exist as it entered the water, and that the bar itself consisted only of that cross-section thereof, which at any given moment coincided with the mathematical plane that separates and at the same time joins the atmosphere and the ocean. So kind of what they're saying is, if you're looking at only the face value of things, if you're only looking at the physical manifestation itself and not the underlying causal factor, then it's like literally looking at this, what they say it was, a bar of metal being dropped into the ocean. Then you're only looking at the moment that the brick impacts with the water. You're not seeing the brick falling down from the air, so you don't know where it came from, and you're also not seeing where that energy is carrying on underneath the water. So there's so much that we are not, you know, perceiving. Even so, of persons and things which, dropping out of the to be into the has been, out of the future into the past, present momentarily to our senses, a cross-section, as it were, of their total selves, as they pass through time and space, as matter, on their way from one eternity to another. And these two eternities constitute that duration in which alone anything has true existence, were our senses but able to cognize it. Okay, I remembered what I was visualizing before. So when you look at like a star in the distance, what you're like looking back in time. So that further alludes to kind of the illusion of time in a way. And all really time is time and space are the fourth dimension. So time and space are kind of the same thing. So as things are further away, you know, when they're those light years away or whatever, we're seeing it. We're just now seeing the light that's being shown from it now, which is technically in the future to where we're looking. It starts to get really weird and quite crazy. So I'll go ahead and read through the last sentence again real quick, and then I will wrap this video up. Even so, of persons and things which dropping out of the to be into the has been, out of the future and into the past, you know, sifting. We could view this also possibly from, you know, moving from Kether to Malkuth once we get to the origin of the tree of life. We haven't even gotten to the creation of the tree of life yet. She's just trying to explain some of these basic principles. Present momentarily to our senses a cross-section. Also think of the dot in the center of the circle, which is the astrological symbol for the sun. Each of us in our own lives are like the dot within that circle. And our whole existence, what we perceive around us is, we are microcosmic universes ourselves. So we are miniature suns, and that's our individual soul's unique place in space-time is that dot in the center of our own universe, and then we can decide what comes into our lives and what goes out of our lives. It's a very, very powerful symbol, and I think it comes into, the symbol of the cross too. It's this cross section, what they were talking about, where the future and the past collide. Momentarily to our senses, this cross section, as it were, of their total selves as they pass through time and space as matter, on their way from one eternity to another. So they're passing through time and space in the form of matter, on their way from one eternity to another, and these two eternities constitute that duration in which alone anything has true existence, were our senses but able to cognize it. So within eternities, it seems like there are more eternities. It is quite bizarre and wild. It's a very cosmic world we live in, my friends. So I didn't get to wrap up the last video the way I normally would, so I somewhat apologize for that. Thank you all for tuning in, for watching. It means more, more than the world to me. It means more than what you could possibly imagine. So stay tuned. Look forward to more videos. Maybe I'll do some more YouTube shorts. Hopefully that expands my audience a little bit more. For those of you, who don't have like the extra 30 minutes to just, sit around and listen to me ramble, the shorts might be a better way of tuning in and getting the same knowledge, but just real quick, and not me rambling on like crazy. So peace and blessings, everybody. I hope you all take care and have a wonderful day.